We routinely see individuals earning massive, high-tier incomes who still struggle with overwhelming debt. If you ask them where the money goes, the answers are usually a confusing mix of excuses, bad luck, and vague math. Relying on someone's verbal testimony to understand their resource management is a deeply flawed approach. People will always narrate a story that protects their ego. To bypass those stories and find the truth, we are going to use the Ramanna observation method. This is a critical thinking framework derived from a classic Indian tale about a clever judge named Maryada Ramanna, who knew exactly how to look past what people said and focus entirely on what they did. By the end of this, you will have the tools to fill this blank notebook. We are going to build a personal resource habit audit, a practical checklist you can use immediately to uncover the hidden financial waste in your own daily routines. The rule we will operate under is simple. If you want to accurately evaluate the truth of a person's character or their financial stability, you have to ignore their words entirely and obsessively observe their micro-habits. Step 1 begins with a dispute. In a small village, there were 2 women. Rangamma was poor, lived a thrifty life, and owned only 2 buffaloes. Her neighbor, Gangamma, was highly wealthy, managing a large estate with 8 buffaloes. The conflict started when Rangamma took Gangamma to the local court. Rangamma claimed that her wealthy neighbor had borrowed a large amount of valuable ghee, clarified butter, and was now flatly refusing to return it. In court, Gangamma presented a highly logical defense. She pointed out her 8 buffaloes and her massive daily production of dairy. She argued that a woman with her abundance of resources would never need to borrow anything from a neighbor who only had 2 buffaloes. The villagers in the court immediately sided with the wealthy woman. This is a common cognitive bias. Audiences naturally conflate the appearance of massive wealth with actual good management. It feels logical that the person with the most assets is the most secure. This brings us to step 1 of our framework: discard verbal testimony. Logical arguments, especially those relying on the appearance of wealth, can easily be manipulated to hide a severe lack of discipline. What sounds right in a debate often obscures the facts on the ground. When logic and testimony create a deadlock, an investigator cannot rely on the debate to solve the case. They must pivot entirely to behavioral observation to find the physical proof. Now we move to step 2, implement a practical test. Judge Ramanna knew he needed to shift the investigation away from their arguments and into active observation. He paused the trial abruptly. He told both women that he would issue his ruling the next morning. For now, he instructed them to step outside, wash their feet with a simple pot of water, and return. The psychological strategy here is precise. Putting subjects into low-stakes, mundane situations forces them to drop their guard. When people stop performing for an audience, they rely on their unconscious habits. Those habits reveal their true nature. Step 3 is to track the sequence of events. Your job in this phase is strictly to record the incoming data without analyzing it yet. Watch the execution. The court officers gave each woman a water pot. Rangamma took hers and washed carefully. She successfully cleaned the mud from both of her feet using only a single small pot of water, demonstrating extreme precision. Gangamma's execution was entirely different. She carelessly splashed the water, missing her feet entirely. She demanded a second pot, then a third. Ultimately, she wasted 4 separate pots of water, and her feet were still dirty. The data gathered from this simple test heavily contradicted the court's initial assumptions. The poor woman operated with total efficiency, while the wealthy woman squandered a surplus of resources and still failed the task. A person's performance in a low-stakes, mundane task perfectly mirrors their broader resource management capabilities. The micro reveals the macro. Look at this logic tree to see how we process that data. Step 4 is to decode the logic, connecting the observed micro-habits to the person's macro-management. Judge Ramanna made his first deduction. If Gangamma cannot efficiently manage a basic pot of water to clean her own feet, she inherently lacks the discipline required to manage her massive dairy estate. This leads directly to the final conclusion. Wasteful actions over time result in a net negative resource drain. Gangamma's daily waste meant she naturally ran out of ghee, forcing her to borrow from her thrifty neighbor, making her guilty. We can now move to Step 5, apply the resource habit audit. We are translating this historical lesson into a modern checklist to audit your own life. Here is the audit checklist. Item 1 is tracking your monthly food waste. Throwing away expired groceries is a direct proxy for financial leakage. If you overpurchase supplies you don't use, you are misjudging your actual needs. Item 2 is monitoring passive utilities. Leaving lights on in empty rooms or running taps unnecessarily shows a disconnect between usage and cost. It is a sign of treating resources as infinite. Item 3 is identifying invisible digital waste. Paying for subscription services you haven't used in months is the modern equivalent of spilling water in the dirt. It is capital draining away with zero return. Finally, Item 4 is the partner observation check. Watch how potential business partners or associates handle minor inconveniences or small expenses. If they are careless with a $10 lunch bill, they will be careless with a $10,000 project budget. Identifying and plugging these daily micro-leaks is the true differentiator. It is the dividing line between those who simply earn a high income and those who actually achieve lasting financial security. You now have a working understanding of the Ramanna observation method. You can see exactly why strict, logical observation of behavior will always defeat verbal testimony. The core philosophy of Judge Ramanna remains absolute. How an individual handles a single drop of water is exactly how they handle their bank account. The habits do not change just because the scale does. Take your new personal resource habit audit and run it against your own routines this week. Track the waste, identify the blind spots, and locate the hidden financial leaks draining your accounts. True mastery of resources stems entirely from thrifty habits, not raw income. Try the audit and let me know the biggest leak you discovered in the comments below. Keep refining your habits, and I'll see you in the next breakdown.